Welcome to part 10 of the Pontus campaign. Last time we declared war on the Thyni and started conquering our way into Thracia, just because we could. We also started a war with Comagene and unfortunately almost lost a settlement to them. They just sacked it after defeating the garrison, and then Ariobarzanes was able to take revenge and bring their army down, so that was all okay in the end. And now we're setting up for a big city assault against Podaiva, one of the main cities in Thracia, so let's get going with it. We're going to attack from two directions. One attack's coming from the southwest. We've got 4 ladders, and that's pretty much the extent of our regular siege equipment, so I'm going to send all of them towards the wall with our Galatian troops, our heaviest troops, to go and try and storm it later on. But before we do that, I'm going to make another attack from the east. That's where all our reinforcements are coming from, so we'll have lots of troops over here. But to get proper use out of them, we'll have to first open up a gap in the wall so we can get into the town, and that's where the artillery will come into things. I'll start by firing at this tower here, and then we'll attack the wall below it as well. That's unfortunately just about all we can do with the ammunition available to one unit of artillery. We can't take out both of the towers, but at least we can get ourselves away into the town without having to burn the gate down, which takes forever. So now we can rush in and try to capture the gates and just generally have a way to go towards the enemy's central capture point and their army. So I'm going to send a handful of units of swordsmen to go and start making their way in. The enemy did come out of the centre with a couple of units to try and stop us, but actually they came and stood on the wall here, which isn't going to be terribly helpful for stopping us going into the breach, so a tiny bit of a mistake there, or a big mistake really, from the AI. Now once we're inside, they realise what's happened and come back to try and stop us, but now we're going to be fighting on the capture point for the tower, and that's going to help us out quite a lot because it will neutralise the tower soon enough so it can't fire at us, and then the actual melee itself that we're going to be left with will be in our favour. We can beat both of the enemy's units one-on-one pretty easily in fact, so we'll just kill those guys and then take control of the area, and indeed take control of the gatehouse. That allows us to bring everything else inside a little bit faster as well, so that's handy. And the troops trying to escape are going to escape right into our guys waiting outside, so that was probably a bad idea. Now we're moving further on, and a couple more units came out from the town centre to try and stop us getting any closer. Those melees are probably going to be fine for us. It's trash spear against medium-ish swordsmen, and we should have an advantage. The potential issue with this fight was that the tower in the background that I captured would be hitting my own men. It was doing an okay job of arcing shots over our troops and hitting the enemy. At the same time, I'm using my archers to try and hit all of these enemy archers back here, because these guys can shoot into this melee and do a lot of damage to us. You can see our troops are quite a big block here, so they're pretty likely to get hit by arrow fire. Unfortunately, I'm doing a really bad job of setting my archers up, and I'm blocking my own lines of fire all over the place, and it only gets worse from here, let me assure you. So we do break through those 2 units of spearmen and start coming into the central area of the town, and now they're going to get serious about trying to stop us. First, they're coming at us with Thracian warriors. This is the special unit deployable by Thracian factions. It's a 2-handed sword unit with a little buckler shield going on there, so it's high attack, low defense, and against my guys who are now damaged and tired from already fighting, that's not going to do too bad. They've also got some trash spears being thrown in there, and soon loads of stuff will go into that melee. This is going to be the main fight where things will be decided. I really could use my archers and ranged units in general to help me out with this fight. They can shoot into the enemy blobs, but they are all just stuck on top of each other. You can see they're going into the firing animation and then just going back out of it when they decide, no, we're not going to fire. Even though it doesn't look like they're really blocking their own lines of sight, they are, because the units are all in weird shapes because of the pathfinding, etc. So that's all going very badly. At least my ladder attack with the Galatians is now going to get started, and this will be quite good. All of our units are better than everything the enemy has defending, so it's just a case of hacking our way through them and hoping that tower doesn't do too much damage. We can get onto the capture point pretty easily and neutralise it, so that will help us out quite a lot if we can do that. We've even got a few hoplites being thrown into that fight there, and some peltasts as well who are quite annoying, but things will generally go well there. So now back to the main blob. You can see it's really forming up into a massive melee brawl at the moment. The guys who were fighting in the blob when things got started are now starting to rout away as their numbers diminish. These swordsmen aren't really a heavy unit, as I mentioned before. They have low armor, so they can't really grind out for ages like some of the later units will hopefully get through reforms. And now our ranged units are just completely out of action. You can see I've messed everything up trying to bring units in. I'd hoped that the blob might be pushed back a bit and I'd get more space to maneuver, so I was bringing units forwards to come and make a bigger battle line. That didn't happen, so they ended up standing on top of the archers, and for whatever reason I just didn't move them back, expecting at any moment to need them in the melee. So our archers were completely negated throughout the fight, and that is going to be a little bit messy and cause things to feel much worse than they could have. At least over here, where the Galatians are fighting, things are going well. We're starting to gain ground. We neutralised their tower. The only real threat was their pelters throwing jabs at our men. I'm trying to use my archers to thin those pelters down, and it's kind of working, but the angles there aren't the best. So here we are a tiny bit later. The blob fight has continued, and the enemy pretty much surrounded this frontal area. I've set up my troops now to defend my archers properly, so we've got some of our troops out of the way, and I'm also just rejigging everything in the hope that things will start firing soon. Still nowhere close to being there at the moment. One day we'll get a few arrows off. But yes, our main blob of troops was surrounded and fought for quite a long time, but what we found was that it actually won the fight. Although we lost several units in the blob, it eventually defeated everything attacking us, because the enemy do have primarily low defense units, so everything they're doing to us will be doing straight back to them. And soon things were clearing up. We're going to be able to clear all of this stuff out, and we even have troops we haven't deployed into the battle yet, so we can now bring up reserves to just push everything that's left out of this town centre and capture it. At the same time, the Galatians have now completed their mission. They killed pretty much everything in this area. A few losses, but nothing significant. We're going to capture that tower and just generally secure that corner of the town. We could now come and rear attack the enemy, but we don't necessarily need to. They're mainly just ranged units, so we can just chase them away using our stuff to capture the capture point. And with the enemy's army losses being so high, it turned out we didn't really need to fight on anymore anyway. They just routed once they were off the capture point, and that was that, a decisive victory. That was a very long and actually quite large battle, but as you can probably tell, I didn't really want to focus on it because it was ultimately quite easy. I just did it the hard way. Anyway, the important point is, we've taken one of the enemy's main settlements, and now it's going to be one of our main settlements, a very nice capital to have here in Europe. We lost something, but no full units, so this may eventually translate to no losses, although we can't replenish in this area at the moment, so these losses are semi-permanent for now. We'll have to continue on with our weakened armies against the enemy. So with that all sorted out, we've actually got half of the Thyni's territory now, so we might as well start thinking about going on to take the rest. First, we need to take down Consolidating, which we started last time, of course. I'm just going to auto-resolve their settlement, even though the result wasn't looking like it was going to be very good, just because auto-resolves are quite mean in Divide et Impera. Garrison units add quite a lot to auto-resolve results, even though they're actually really bad in actual fights. So we do take moderate casualties. Hopefully we'll be able to just get those guys back very soon, and that's not going to be a problem. And the whole reason we did that, by the way, in case you forgot, is just so that we have a region in that province of Syria, because one of our missions is to have at least one region in 11 different provinces, so that just contributes towards that. But they did actually come back for this very cheeky counterattack. They had a general still alive somewhere in Armenia. He hired tons of really good mercenaries, presumably just using all of the faction's remaining money, and came in for another attack against us, so that was unexpected and incredibly cheeky from the enemy. Now as for the battle, I didn't think we had much chance of winning, even though we have decent numbers of units. They're all really bad, they're half dead and their stats are low, so I thought we probably wouldn't be able to beat the enemy's mercenary units, especially the heavy cavalry stuff they were bringing there. So I'm just going to take that loss. The enemy do occupy the settlement, which kind of is the best option, because now we know where they are. We can just counterattack and immediately take it back. We don't have to repair damage from sacking or anything like that. It's just going to be a public order penalty, effectively, and a population penalty, technically, since the garrison being killed in these battles does give us reduced population in this mod, although our population is so high and the fighting isn't very intense around here that this won't have any lasting effect. So there we go, quickly taking it back. This time, Consolidating are dead. Consolidating are dead for good. Now back to Thyni. I'm looking around with my spy trying to see where their armies are, and it seems they just don't have any. So I'm going to go on the offensive against them. But here's why I couldn't see them. They did have an army. It was just in ambush stance right on the border and in my path. We've been bamboozled. This, I think, is the second time I've ever seen this happen in Rome 2 after 500 plus hours of playing it. So I was very surprised by this indeed. A true ambush. The other time, by the way, was in my Tale series at some point. So we're just going to have to fight this battle and see what happens. We have no choice at this stage. It's one of these ambush maps where the enemy have just ambushed you somehow, which you get a lot in Rome 2 and Attila, where the map's completely open. They just somehow deployed in front of us. We only just realised they were there, so now we're going to have to very quickly do something about it. I'm going to move the whole column backwards to try and make a formation at the back there, since the enemy were mostly deployed towards the front. But that may not work unless we delay them in some way, so that's where our militia hoplites will come into things. Our lowest value unit will just be around, remain near the front of the column to block enemy units so everything else can properly form up. They're going to have absolutely no chance in these fights they're going to be forced into, but that doesn't matter. They just need to buy us 5 to 10 seconds, and that's enough to get our front line formed up, ready for a regular field battle now, and that's effectively what happens. Our men are just killed immediately, and their low morale means they don't fight for very long, but it was long enough. They did their job. We're now ready to fight the rest of this battle. Front on. The first unit to hit our front line takes massive damage from javelins and arrows being flung at them from pretty much everything, and that unit's going to disappear really quickly as a result. Now the enemy see that ambushing us may not be so easy. I've got just a bit more time to extend my front line before the rest of the enemy army comes in and starts attacking us, so I managed to stop them from outflanking us too badly with that extension. And now a slow grind will just build up. The enemy are going to mostly attack us from the front, and we'll just have to see what happens with that. Here, their general manages to avoid fighting my men somehow. He just walks right through them, then decides to attack once he's through, so that probably counts as a rear attack. That was very cheeky from this general. It does mean my javeliniers are hitting him pretty hard, but they're probably hitting my own men as well, since he's now so deeply amongst our own formation there. So that was unfortunate, but anyway, he's actually going to be defeated pretty soon, so that will help us out. I've got lots of archers on our side as well, and the main thing I'm tasking them with doing is taking out the enemy's archers and their javeliniers. They have absolutely loads of skirmishers and lots of melee units that throw javelins, and all of these javelins coming in are starting to do real damage to our front line, because while we're locked down fighting with the enemy's miscellaneous units, we are going to take a lot of casualties to that fire. You can see things are starting to break up in the centre, one of our units considering routing. It's really not an advantageous fight that we're taking here. It's better than being ambushed and attacked from all sides, but we still don't have a way to necessarily kill all these enemies. And you can see here a bit later, we're actually losing this frontline fight. All of our guys are going to have a morale debuff for fighting in an ambush battle, even if we actually got away from the ambush itself. So it's easy to lose units, and what we saw is the entire front line just started to disintegrate. We killed plenty of enemies in the process, but not enough to stop them easily outflanking us and just generally killing us through attrition. We've still got lots of skirmishers left who are firing into the now increasingly easy to hit enemy blobs, so they'll be doing quite a lot of damage there, but not enough to stop the enemy from surging forwards and now pushing our skirmishers back. So the battle is going to change now into a second phase where all I can do is keep running away with the archers and see if I can do some really annoying skirmish tactics where I move in lots of different directions and get the odd volley off on these enemy units to try and weaken them. We don't have much ammo left at this point in the battle though, so we can't actually do that for very long. Our general out there, Mithridates III, I think it is, Mithridates Goes to Hollywood, is kiting away various enemy units from the main fight, but we've still already lost that main fight, so that doesn't really help. But it's just part of the general strategy of breaking the enemy army up to make skirmishing against them easier. His main problem is that the enemy do have some light cavalry who can catch up with him very easily. We don't have the energy to outrun them, so I can't just run away since we'll be attacked from the rear constantly. We'll have to turn around and fight with these guys. Fortunately, our cav's quite a lot better. Immediately the enemy reconsider fighting us once they catch up. We just need to kill them fast enough to escape from all of these spearmen who are now coming to join the fight. Luckily we do manage to do it and can just about get away there, and instead start chasing those enemy slingers further up the hill. Slingers on foot are fast enough to run away from heavy cavalry, so we actually don't catch them until the very edge of the map, but that pursuit will now be safe for Mithridates to make. Meanwhile, our archers are having an okay time fighting with the various units who are pursuing them. I caught one here in the rear and managed to make it rout, and because it was near the edge of the map it just disappeared off and turned into a ghostly form, so that helps out quite a lot. I lost a couple of other units of archers to being stuck on the edge of the map themselves, not very nice, and there goes Mithridates just chasing his quarry off into the distance. Now you can see from the replay timer that this battle lasted a long time, and if you are a Rome 2 veteran you probably already know what's going to happen as a result of that timer observation. So what I'm going to show you here is just a couple of highlights from what happened in the rest of the battle. What I was trying to do is find isolated enemy units and bring them down by surrounding and attacking them with a couple of my own, while anything that couldn't fight would just continuously run. We only have fast units left, so this is pretty good in terms of a runaway setup. Just run away from the enemy's main blob and stop it from being able to engage us. Every time that one of the enemy units ended up slightly away from the blob, we'd come in and attack it. Here's one such case where Mithridates used a wedge charge to attack these swordsmen. This may not necessarily be enough to bring them down, but we were fortunate in that they were already low on strength, and I can use Mithridates' war cry skill, which lowers enemy morale, to actually rout that unit, and just in time as well, because now we'll have a few seconds to kill some more of them to make sure the unit's damaged, and then we'll have to get out of there because the enemy main force is about to come down a big hill and trap Mithridates in the corner. Fortunately we got away with it that time, and then we managed to go on to kill another enemy unit when it was fighting my javs on some other edge of the map, and a quick rear attack finishes them off, so that's very nice. Getting quite a lot of late battle kills here to make sure that the enemy army is nice and weak after this, and we are of course going to win, just due to the fact that we can keep escaping the ambush indefinitely because of our superior speed, and the battle runs out of time. So we end up with a win. The game cuts the music out because it's so disappointed in me for using that tactic, but I didn't feel like losing Mithridates 3. All we've really done is keep a few units. Our army's still unable to fight, but at least the enemy army is trash now as well. I think proportionally both sides probably lost about the same amount, so a Pyrrhic victory as it says indeed. But with Mithridates 3 still alive, we've got what we want from the fight, and we do actually have the battlefield. We can continue on. We've thwarted the enemy's attempts to prevent our invasion, but as I said, we can't actually do it with this army in its state now, so effectively they have stopped us with that fight, so a strategic victory for them perhaps. However, we do just have another army, so invasion number 2 will now be much harder for them to resist. I came to lay siege to the settlement, and the balance bars really far in their favour, which I was surprised by. They didn't seem to have that much here. So with that balance bar, I thought let's just leave them under siege, because I may be able to quickly put something together with Mithridates 3 to help out. We're not going to have many Pontic units available to us here because our culture hasn't taken hold, but we can start recruiting foreign style units, so use the area of recruitment infantry instead, and there's quite a few choices here, lots of fairly decent things to pick from, so we'll just make a little Thracian army, and that can then come over to help out. So here we are a turn or two later, we've got a full stack or an almost full stack ready to go. I want to use this army to attack the smaller enemy army off to the west there that still hasn't gone away, so I'll have to wait until next turn to do that. When we reach the next turn, we get some bad news. The Adrisan Kingdom has suddenly declared war on us. They were probably called into the war by Thyni here. So now we're under threat back over here. The enemy can attack the territories we've already taken very easily, and indeed they could just attack the western part of our core territories as well. We don't have anything over here except Mithridates 2 with a small fleet that's not going to do anything to stop a land invasion. So now we're going to have to deal with this scenario. That means ending the siege over here, in this turn preferably, so we can go and start setting up our defences, or just prepare to counterattack when we lose something. So first I'm going to make this little attack that I planned here. We can take out the small Thyni army using Mithridates 3. That's no problem by the looks of things. With that done, the enemy garrison will now be quite overwhelmed by us, so hopefully the balance bar won't be looking so bad. But I did want to do this in a particular way. What I'm going to do here is take Mithridates and break the siege to start with, so that Mithridates 3 can be be the one technically doing the attack. That's just because when we occupy the settlement, it takes away all of the movement points of the army that does the occupation. So by making that be Mithridates 3, we're actually not losing that much movement in total because he already moved this turn before making this attack. So now we have Mithridates with pretty much all of his movement points available. That will help us get forces back over to the east quicker, and we can even get into range of Podaiva right now, just in case something came down from the north to attack it. So that's all good. We will cover our defense against the Idrisan Kingdom, and indeed another faction that suddenly declares war on us, in the next part.